the first Tamil contestant on BBC Apprentice.
I'm a child of two Tamil refugee immigrants. The Apprentice, that was something that wasn't in the plans. I only told a few people that I was planning on going on the show, and mixed opinions. I think I can go on and just not look silly. I mean, how hard is it to not do anything stupid?
How was that for you on that journey of personal growth and development?
That's probably the biggest lesson I've taken away from it.
So let's talk about the tasks. Some of them were just shocking. The elephant in the room, that ill-informed comment.
You've got to take into account, I left the show.
What was the reason why you left?
In a million years, I never would have thought that I would see myself on the front page of The Sun being accused for something I didn't do.
How did you mentally, emotionally prepare for that?
You know, for me, this whole journey has been really tough for me, and there's been highs and lows. To have that printed about me, it still does hurt.
What would be your advice for anyone that's facing a tough decision?
It's a really good question.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fearless Fireside Chats. Today I'm joined by the one and only Dr. Jana Denzel. He was a standout contestant on this year's BBC Apprentice, and his journey sparked a lot of controversial conversations. So we're excited to have him here on our sofas and hear his side of the story. Jana, welcome to Fearless Fireside Chats.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get things started. So you were the first Tamil contestant on a massive show like BBC Apprentice. Yeah. And I think we need to make a note and say like how important that kind of representation is, especially within our community, because I think growing up watching shows like that, it's never been really apparent that, you know, places like that and boardrooms especially were never really a space where we could kind of take up or even see ourselves kind of being in those rooms and having a seat at the table, right? And I think entrepreneurship, especially as first generation immigrants, it's always been, you know, the classic corner shops, post office, restaurant vibes, and never kind of, you know, real business boardroom kind of material. So on behalf of our community, I just want to say thank you for just showing up and representing that, because I think it's so important, and it shows not only our generation, but the generation above and below that we deserve that space, and we most certainly deserve a seat at that table. So I can't imagine the journey that you've been on, but I'm excited to kind of get into that. Sure. For anyone that doesn't know you, could you just kind of give us a brief introduction into you, your business, and what led you to apply to The Apprentice?
Sure. Okay. So I'm a child of two Tamil refugee immigrants that came from the war during the 1980s, late 1980s over here. And then I always kind of grew up in an academic household. My parents were very strict, you know, after school, studying hours, prayer hours, extracurricular activities as well. And they always pushed their kind of standard Asian, African options when you go to your career. It's got a doctor, dentist, or lawyer. So those were kind of the options that they're giving me. My older brother was a doctor, and so a lot of my cousins. And I wasn't such a big fan of all the night shifts, the long hours in the hospitals that they were doing. But I still wanted to work with patients and do something to give back as well. So I think dentistry kind of just fell for me at such a young early age, like when I was 15, something I wanted to do. I had quite an unconventional journey to get there, but then I graduated in 2019, worked for a couple of years in the NHS, and then I moved over to Harley Street pretty early on, pretty junior-wise, but I've been there for the last nearly 4 years now, and started up my own dent studio company, and I've just been working on that.
Just on that, what was the unconventional route?
So the unconventional route is the first time I applied to do dentistry, 2009, I think, a long time ago. And I had such a big friend group in London, so many friends, really attached to them. So going to university outside of London just didn't feel right to me, right? Yeah. Now, I got my offers to study at Queen Mary's in East London, and also in Manchester, which is up north. Now, when I got my A-level results, I met my Manchester offer, but I didn't meet my Queen Mary one. And silly of me, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to take a gap here and then reapply, and then I can get it this way. And then when you take a gap here and reapply, you need to get all A's, and I ended up getting 1B, right? Oh my God. So now not only did Queen Mary say no, but Manchester also said no. So I was in a predicament now where I kind of just lost everything that I kind of worked towards for. Took a BSc, tried to apply after, it didn't work out, kind of ran out of options at this point. So people were asking me, okay, let's just look at doing something else. But I was so determined that I wanted to be a dentist since I was 15 that I didn't want to give it up. So I took a year out, worked as a recruitment consultant in London, but I also did part-time jobs like a postman with my dad,
Nice.
KFC, all these different old jobs to try and save up enough money to go abroad and fund it. I didn't have nearly enough money after a year, but then my dad believed in me, and I told him, look, if you can give me a chance and do something, I'm going to make sure that I study really hard, become a dentist, and come back and take care of everyone. So he took a chance on me. I went abroad to study in Valencia, Spain. I studied my course in Spanish, and I didn't speak a word of Spanish before I went there. And then I came back to the UK. So not the most normal route someone would take to do dentistry.
Yeah, but I think life lessons along the way, 100%, right?
Definitely.
So what kind of led you to apply for the Apprentice this year?
So the Apprentice, that was something that wasn't in the plans, right? It wasn't something that I planned on doing. I think I last watched Apprentice properly when I was like in high school. So over a decade ago, watching it on TV after school. It was just one of those kind of after school TV shows you'd watch. You never really had mobile phones, the internet then. It was really, the main primetime TV channels that you tuned into. So I watched it then, but then last year for the first time they had a dentist on it.
Okay.
And then I watched it because he was a dentist. I knew of him. Actually, I did know him, but not too well.
Yeah.
And then whilst I watched him go out throughout the show, I spoke to his brother as well, and he said our patient bookings have gone completely off the roof since he's been on the show. And I was like, wow, okay, well, I've just started my new business and studio. It would be great if I could get more patients to come in. Why don't I try and apply and be on the show? Right?
Yeah.
So that was the reasoning behind it. With so many applicants, I didn't think I'd ever actually get that position. So I applied. There are lots of different auditions and interviews that you have to go through. And then a couple months after, I ended up getting the place.
How long is that process?
I think a couple months.
Okay.
I think I started, you have the online application. Then once you make it, I think in February, March, April. So about 2 or 3 months.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And when you got it, what were your thoughts? What did you expect, and what was the reality like?
So I only told a few people that I was planning on going on the show before I did it, and mixed opinions, because my older brother is actually a fan of the show. He loves it. He watches it with his wife, and they're very tuned in. Now they watch it for entertainment purposes, right? Which I guess most people do. When I told him, he was like, I don't know if that's a good move, because most people that go on the show, they're going to end up looking silly. Right?
Or get portrayed in a certain way.
And he was like, you've done really well being a Harley Street dentist. Don't know if this is a good move for you, but it's up to you. I'll let you decide. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think I can go on and just not look silly. I mean, how hard is it to just go on and not do anything stupid, don't say anything silly? A lot harder than you think it is.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. But then after, he kind of supported my decision with me. And then, I kind of studied all of the old episodes before I went in the house.
Okay, so you did your homework.
I did my homework, what works, what doesn't work, and then packed all my bags, and then I went off.
So, when you're living there and you're like 24/7 with the other contestants, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we see the very kind of polished and edited version, the end product.
Yeah.
How far removed from reality is the final episodes, and what is it really like behind the scenes?
So it is heavily edited. That's why all of us every week we get together, all the candidates, to watch the show, because we're like, we know what happened, but we have no idea what they're going to show on TV, and how it's going to be portrayed, right? So in a few episodes so far, there's a lot of stuff that didn't happen, but on TV it's okay, it's happened. right? So they kind of choose their own narrative. But living in the house was definitely an experience itself, because you're shut out from the outside world. You don't have any contact with anyone apart from your little kind of circle of trust that you can call once every 2 weeks or 10 days. You get like a 10-minute phone call with them.
No way, it's like a prison cell. A
lot of people compare it to that. And it's chaperoned as well, so you have someone listening in, because they can't tell you what's going on in the outside world, and you can't tell them what's going on in the house or in the task. So it's just kind of just having that communication there, but you are left with 17 other people in the house that you don't have any technology, no phones, no contact with the outside world, so it's kind of left there with one another. I think we just naturally drift towards your kind of groups, and that's what happened in the house, and of course what's happened on the outside as well.
Whenever I watch it and they're like, in the middle of the night, and then there's a phone call and they're like, guys, you've got 20 minutes, and I'm like, there is no way, especially the girls that are getting up and getting showered and makeup on and hair done and dressed and out the door in 20 minutes. Is that true?
So it is true that you do get that phone call really early on, so 4 or 5 a.m. you do get that phone call, right? And then they do tell you 20 minutes to get ready and come downstairs.
Right.
So they do give you 20 minutes.
So it's actually legit 20 minutes?
They wake you up with a camera on your face. That's when you first wake up. And then they say, get downstairs, get ready, get downstairs. And everyone just starts getting ready just like that.
But you guys are like having a chin wag while you're getting ready. Some people are in bed having a chat. Like...
They do that because it's all for the TV, right? So you've got to have film those moments. But what you don't see is that after you've had your 20 minutes, you have to go downstairs and each person needs to get mic'd up. Right, so that takes quite a bit of time, especially because there's 18 of us, right? Yeah. So if you play it strategically, what I used to do is get up, all right, 20 minutes, cool. Then wait till everyone goes downstairs, and then I have an hour to get ready. But then everyone knew me in the house as the last person to walk out that door because I would just take my time. I think some of the girls would get ready the night before, maybe put their hair or makeup on, and then get ready and just do a little bit from there. But we genuinely did have 20 minutes to get ready. Where it was probably like an hour and a bit until that phone call till we out the door.
Okay, got you. Okay, it makes sense.
That's why sometimes it's dark outside, and then when we get in the car, it's all light. What's going on?
Yeah, that's what I was like, 20 minutes, no way in how that happens. But okay, that makes sense, right. In terms of kind of like the characters in the show, what was it like? Because, there were some prickly characters. Is that the truth of, what they were like day in, day out? Or is that, again, coming out in the edit?
I would say a bit of both, right? So if you have a characteristic, the show would definitely bring that out to be the main thing about you, really exaggerate it. And sometimes some edits, as in, we had some characters pretty early on that made like loud, bold statements of the character they are. And they are like that, but the edit would definitely emphasize it.
I mean, there were a lot of showdowns and a lot of drama that was created. How much of that was real and how much of that was, I don't know, forced interactions?
I think a lot of drama, especially early on, was real. As in, especially in the first episode when we went to Austria, the director actually had to come and sit down and talk to us after and say, this isn't Love Island, this isn't Big Brother, this is The Apprentice. Okay.
Wow, so, tone it down.
Yeah, tone it down, fix up, none of this behaviour going on board, or otherwise you're all going to be out. And we were a bit like, oh, wow, okay.
Okay. I guess in terms of like you being able to be yourself, because obviously you're in a completely new environment with like complete strangers, doing different tasks, and I guess like how was that for you on that journey of like kind of personal growth and development as well?
Oh, definitely. I think as a dentist, I'm seeing different patients every day with different personalities. To be in a house full of different personalities and being forced to kind of get along with them, it really puts you outside your comfort zone. Yeah. Because, I think the last time I did this probably was in early high school when we go on trips together with the class, right? So this experience definitely taught me how to change your language when you're speaking to different people to be able to suit and relate to them better. And that's probably the biggest lesson I've taken away from it, because whether I'm with Liam or Fred to Carlo or someone else, the way I communicate with them is definitely different for each person.
Okay, so let's talk about the tasks
that
you had to do. Yeah. Some of them were just shocking, honestly. Easter egg episode where the design was literally, I think my 2-year-old has done a better job. Seriously, guys, what were you playing at? How much of that is, just a cock up, or how much of it is, okay, this is what yours is going to look like?
I think, as far as I know, speaking to the girls after, that's what they created.
Oh, wow, really?
Right. I have no idea why we went down like that. You do get time constraints and limited options, I guess, right. But even so, when they presented it to us, I realized that when they do show you any feedback that you give them, the investors can later use. I think that production tell the investors, that's what I've demanded to say. So if you just look at my face when I saw it, I was like, oh damn, we are in trouble.
We're screwed. Yeah. I was literally like, oh my God, seriously. Yeah. When you in the boardroom, and obviously you have FaceTime with Alan Sugar, Sir Alan Sugar, and Baroness Brady. What are they like?
So I would say what you see is what you get.
Okay.
They do edit Lord Sugar to make him a little bit more brutal than in the final edits, because there was a lot of stuff he said to me that didn't make the cut. Okay. And then after I was like a little bit disappointed, because it would have been nice to have that positive praise on there. But most of the time what you see is what you get. He's a very straight talker, gets to the point. quite old school as well.
Yeah.
So I think in episode 2, I was trying to explain to him the logo that they created versus the logo I put forward. And he was like, oh, Jana, you're too technical for a young man. Don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Right?
okay.
So he is quite old school.
And so he's not as brutal as he comes across.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, interesting. A little teddy bear.
There's definitely that side to him, yeah.
I like it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room
Sure.
and that ill-informed comment.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know or isn't aware of it, do you want to just give us a bit of context and background into it?
Sure. So on Easter egg episode, I was in charge of the branding and character development of the task we were going to have. And then I realized in the holiday market, such as, Santa Claus for Christmas, or even, different characters throughout holiday themes, I didn't feel people like me represented, right? So people of color, black or brown.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be a really good idea to make our astronaut a character of color.
Yeah.
And then when I did my little pitch to our sub team and I presented the character and I said, this is going to work really well, I accidentally, in the moment, a 10-second slip was like, I've created a colored character to represent myself and people that look like me around the world.
Yeah.
Just so, other children would really like it. You see that with Barbie now, they have lots of different dolls of color, and it appeals to a lot more people. So I thought, that's great, let's do it here.
It's representation. Yeah.
Representation. When I accidentally said I created a character, I think one of the girls pulled me up and said, Jana, you can't say that. You have to say character of color. And I was like, oh, my fault, my bad. This is a character of colour I've created to represent people that look like me. I've never really felt represented by holiday hero before. And I really want Easter Ed to be that one for me. And I think it will really work well.
And that was another contestant, not necessarily...
No, it was another contestant.
Okay.
Yeah, another candidate that pulled me out.
And when that kind of all happened...
Yeah.
Did nothing blew up after that, right?
Nothing. It was just 10 seconds. It was just that little thing. Oh, no. Oh, sorry. And because, we're filming the whole time.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I need to reset for the refilming. And that was it. It was literally in the space of 10, 20 seconds. That was it, right?
Yeah.
However, you've got to take into account a couple of things there. I left the show, right?
Yeah.
So leaving the show, and especially what I actually said in the boardroom that never got aired, probably upset a couple of the producers and the fact that I left as well.
What was the reason why you left?
The reason why I left, and this is what I said in the boardroom, right? And viewers will probably see it as well, because for some reason they did include in the first few episodes some of my good bits, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought, I've left the show, I'm going to be made to look like an idiot. There's no way they're going to portray me being good here. But some of the stuff, they did. A lot of the stuff I did good didn't make the cut, understandably. But because they put a few good things, I know I can say this and people can understand. When I was in the boardroom, I said to Lord Sugar, in the first task, I did 2 really good negotiations, but that wasn't talked about in the boardroom as well. When I watched previous episodes, if someone does a good negotiation, not necessarily as high as I did, because I think I did the highest that's been in the history of the show before, he comes at it with praise. He's, oh, well done, you're a good negotiator, you should have negotiated Brexit. So I came into that boardroom and I was like, yeah, what's just going to happen? I'm going to get praised. And then he completely just sidelined me. And that happened on the next task as well. And I was like to myself, what's going on here? There's people in the room who haven't done necessarily as well in terms of the figure-wise, but he's giving them praise, but he's definitely not giving me the praise. And then I realized it's a TV show. So maybe the character that I'm meant to be portrayed in isn't meant to be one that goes out there and does really well. So in episode 4, when I've done really well, he says to me at the end, Jana, you've been really quiet. And then I was just like, what? Right? And that really hit me. So I was just like, all right, cool, let me be PM. So I was PM, and I said to myself, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to win the task, and then after I'm going to be like, you know what, Lord Sugar, done really well over here, won the task over here as well, thank you, but it's not going to be me, right? This process isn't for me. That was the plan, and I said that still, whether we win or lose, I want to lead the process. Unfortunately, we lost, but I said that in the boardroom as well, that I said, from the first task to task 5, I've given it 100%, done really well with negotiations. All of my teammates have been praising me. But when I come into this boardroom, you never say anything nice. Apart from episode 5, that's when you actually start giving me praise for my choices and stuff. So based on that, Lord Sugar, I just don't think me and you would gel well or work together as business partners. So I'd like to lead the process. And then I had to refilm it because they were like, you're not saying that. Right?
So they actually stopped and was like, no, you can't say that.
No, they stopped it. And Lord Sugar stepped out of the room and came back in again. He goes, what's this really about? And I said, you guys...
Was that one-to-one with you?
No, this was
With
in
everyone
in
there.
the boardroom.
Okay.
It was like, what's really going on? And I said, well, you haven't been giving me praise. And then Tim was there. He was like, I've been giving you praises for negotiations the whole time. What are you talking about, right? You know when they have their separate little boxes and so that person's done really well. He was like,
Yeah.
I've been doing that the whole time. And I was like, well, I don't ever see that. That's separate, right, to the camera. Since I've been here, you guys haven't given me any praise. And I'm not one of those people like, oh, you need to praise me. But I feel like when someone does something good, you should give them their credit. Same if you've done something bad, you should tell them that you've done something bad too. And I just don't feel like, my place over here and we just work well together. So we went back and forth a little bit. And then I was just like, okay, you know what? I just don't feel like I want it as much as other guys. Over here, these people want it more than I do. And I just don't think I'm a good fit. And I think they kept that little bit there.
Yeah.
And they aired that, but they missed a lot of what I said beforehand. And that's why when I left the show, a lot of people were confused. So like, well, what really happened? Was it this comment that you made that people were taken out of? Was it that you lost and you were gonna get fired? Or what was it really happening? And as a team, as project leader kind of thing, I didn't know, because we get split off when we do talk to our investors. So there was Anissa, Liam and Chisola going on from one side and us going on the other side. So I never knew how well they did.
Okay.
So I didn't know if you won or lost at that point. But I wanted to say it before, because even if we did lose and then after I said, oh, you know what, we lost, I'm gone, then it looks like I'm leaving because I lost. So I said, let me just say it before and tell my reasons why. But unfortunately, that didn't get aired.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, because obviously it's a massive platform and a massive opportunity in the first place, right? And for you to walk away from an opportunity like that after going through all of that process and, not only just like getting on it, but also going through the weeks and dealing with all of the shit that comes with it.
Yeah.
It's a big decision to make.
It is. It's not one I took lightly. I think I remember in the first couple of weeks when we got that phone call, I got to call my older brother. He said to me, what's going on? How you been doing? He said it in Tamil. So he used that code word. And I was like, I've been doing really well. Everyone over here thinks I'm one of the favourites to win. It's going great. However, when I'm in that boardroom, I just don't think he likes me. Or I just don't feel like he gives me that attention or looks at me as a potential business partner. And my brother was like, oh no, it's too early to tell. And I was like, no, I just got that gut feeling that in the boardroom, it's not there. And if you look at the boardrooms from the episodes, you will realise it doesn't really pay much attention to me. And in the episodes, you can see me doing really well, but in the boardroom, it's just not spoken about. So in my head, I was like, you know what, I know it's a TV show. I know it's a little bit scripted and they already have who the businesses they want, who they want to win. And if I don't think I'm in that line, then why am I still going to carry on? It wasn't one I took lightly, but at the end of task 4, that's when I kind of made my decision. Said it to the producers as well, that I don't think this is the right fit for me. And I unfortunately left.
When you were thinking about leaving, you must have thought, I'm going to get some stick for this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And how did you kind of almost mentally, emotionally prepare for that?
I don't think you ever really can, I knew to myself, or I really hoped we won. That would have been one thing to change the narrative, right? To do it. But I was like, regardless, it was one of those things, because I think there's only been a handful of people who ever left the show beforehand. Yeah. And for me, it's just, why am I going to continue being in a process where I don't feel like I would be a good business partner with the person that we're all competing for? There's other people in the process that feel that they want that relationship more than I do, than me staying on here, coming back into the boardroom, bringing 2 people with me to try and get them fired instead of me. There's no point, and it's quite unfair on them as well, because at episode 4, I looked at him and I said, nah, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a business partner, because a business is like a marriage, right? It's a 50-50 partnership, and you have to get along with them. Yeah. That's the most important thing, rather than how much they can help you or how much, money you can make. If you're not enjoying that journey together and you're not, just vibing with that person, there's no point doing it. So when I felt like that, I just felt, look, everyone else over here really wants it. And if I'm not having that same mindset, what's the point being here?
Yeah, no, completely. I guess that whole perception of, going into a business venture, it is very much like a marriage, right? It's 2 people coming together, but it's also, you need to be of the same mindset and have that same vibe and also be on the same kind of trajectory. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, because some people will get blindsided by the impact or authority or power or money or network that someone can bring to the table. Yeah. But I think it's very important to stay true to who you are and not lose your values and your kind of core principles. Definitely. To almost sell your soul to the devil, right?
Definitely.
And I think that's quite a bold and brave thing to do. And I think owning and knowing your worth are almost 2 separate things, right? Because you can own your worth, but when you know your worth, you stand up for what you believe in, and you stand up for what you're worthy of, right?
Exactly.
And I think from kind of this story, I guess what I'm trying to understand and get to the bottom of, I guess, I know you get a gut feeling of when, you know, you don't vibe with someone.
Yeah.
But on the magnitude that was on,
Yeah.
in terms of The Apprentice and the show and Sir Alan Sugar, what was the straw that broke the camel's back that was like, nah, this is not for me, I need to get out of here?
With that being said, right, I think my parents have always raised me, because we're refugees, we come from very humble beginnings, but to always treat everyone with the same amount of love and respect, whether you're the CEO of a huge company or whether you're the cleaner of, you know, the building, right? And I've always carried that same respect with me. So even at work now on Harley Street, I do see lords, I do see baronesses, and I treat them just as I would with any patient. So when I come into that room, of course, I am really admired by all three, Tim, Lord Sugar, Baroness Brady, of how much they've achieved. But I don't look at them and think they're at a stage where I will never get to in my life. Because if I had that mindset, I would never got to where I am now. So sitting across that table, across the room to them, speaking to them, getting to know them one-on-one, great, they've done amazing things. But are they that different to who I am or who I can get to? I personally didn't see so. Right? They're all human beings, and they're all just people at the end of the day.
100%.
So a lot of people, as candidates and viewers as well, always have that putting Lord Sugar into kind of a bracket, or he's a millionaire, if he comes into my life, he's going to change it. I never saw it like that. And I told myself, you know, you've got to keep in mind, Lord Sugar has so many different businesses, right? So if he's going to partner with you, it's not like he's going to be partnered with you and actively in your business all of the time. He'll give you those monthly phone calls, put you in touch with the right people, but ultimately you've got to do the work yourself. And when I realized I wasn't vibing with him, and I don't feel like my contributions to the show were really portrayed much into the boardroom, then I told myself, look, if I don't know what my reason of my character is being in the show for, but I don't feel like it's one that's going to win this. So on that basis, if we don't gel well or work together, there's no point me continuing to stay here. And it was something I spoke about with producers, spoke about with the candidates the night before we went into the boardroom, because I packed all my bags, heard my decisions. I think I was sleeping next to the dean, who's a very good friend of mine, and he was like, nah, Jana, you got to get there to the end, you're going to be in the finals, trust me. And I was like, bro, you're going to be in the finals, okay? You know, and I strongly believe that, because Dean has got a really good passion to want to do it. But for me, this is just not it. And, you know, I've got other opportunities outside of the show, and I'm just going to take my chance on that.
I think that's a testament to believing yourself and backing yourself. And I can't agree more about, you know, people with titles and backgrounds and whatever. I think it's very easy to put them on pedestals. But at the end of the day, the essence of who we are, we're all the same. We're all human beings. And we all have a story and we all have a journey. And I think it's coming down to the fact that if you believe in yourself, you are more than halfway there.
Exactly that.
And if you back yourself, like really truly back yourself and really believe that, you know what, no matter what, I'm making a success of this. And even if there's a brick wall, you will find the sledgehammer to break it down. And I think that's a really important lesson to everyone out there, young and old, to know that, you know, glass ceilings, yes, they do exist, but actually it's on you to smash them down and get the right network and people around you to help you drive forward, essentially. And I think that's quite a powerful lesson that we don't normally say out loud and we don't talk about enough, especially from a mentorship or from a coach perspective. I don't think we have, especially as a community from a diasporic background, I think people have access to that kind of intel or knowledge and being in spaces and rooms like that. So I think it's really important to say out loud. And I think that the power that you have in knowing yourself and backing yourself, I think that's incredible. So I think that's what's coming out to me, that you know what you want regardless of kind of what situations kind of come your way. I think you're one of those people that say, do you know what, if this is for me, great, if it's not, then it's not. So that's quite a story. What's been your biggest lesson so far in terms of entrepreneurship?
My biggest lesson, so many. I think you've got to really love what you do, because there's no way you're going to succeed to the levels you want to if you don't really love what you're doing. I think having a why is really important as well. For me, it's, you know, seeing my parents work 16-hour days when I was younger to give us everything we wanted, you know, coming from nothing. It's been a hard struggle for them to get to us to where we are, and all I am is because of their hard work and sacrifices. So my biggest why is really to give back to them. I want to see them live the life that they truly deserve. And hopingly, I'm getting there. I've ticked off a few of my vision board kind of list that I had to do with them. So hopefully as time goes on and I'm along this journey of entrepreneurship, I can take them along with me and give them what they need.
No, that's really sweet. What's been kind of the biggest shock or revelation when you've kind of gone down setting up and owning your own business? What advice would you give to the young Jana?
Oh, it's hard. It's not as easy as you think it is. And there's always lots of mundane tasks to do, as well as the, nice and, sexy tasks with marketing and branding and stuff, right? So it's for me, though, it's always been entrepreneurship. Yeah, my dad used to own lots of different shops around the island of Sri Lanka that got burned down in the 80s when the war happened. So when he came back here, unfortunately, like his brothers and sisters, he didn't have an education or degree to his name. He just went into business. So he always told me, look, it's great that you want to, be entrepreneurial and be in business, but have a degree next to your name, just in case anything goes wrong. You always have that there. And thankfully, I've been able to merge both entrepreneurship and dentistry together. And I think I get that from my dad. So from a young age, talking to young Jana, I always knew that this was something I was going to do. But being able to merge the academics as well as the business has been a true blessing. And I think if I had a message to him, just say, keep going, keep going. I feel like if you still have faith, know your why, and put in the work, you're going to get there.
What would be your advice for anyone that's facing a tough decision right now, whether that's walking away from a massive opportunity and sticking to their guns? Where and how do they almost seek comfort, confidence, courage to make that decision? What would your advice be to someone in that similar situation?
That's a really good question. And I hope that my journey on the show can kind of highlight the importance of staying true to yourself. I think, as I said before, back in the days, we always had our career paths kind of predetermined for us by coming from Asian or, African communities. A lot of my friends have said they've grown up with the same thing. But nowadays, when I'm seeing a lot of my patients who just do YouTube, create space, they're making more money than I do, right? And really enjoying what they do as well. And I really feel like if you just stay true to yourself, whether it's going down a certain unconventional career pathway, because it's what you enjoy and what you're really good at and really passionate about, but might not necessarily be what your parents agree with, I think definitely just go for it. You need to understand what your parents say in terms of choosing the traditional career path will probably be able to give you a secure amount of income and be able to work with anywhere in the world. But if you really feel like you're good at what you do, you truly have a passion for it and you can go for it, I would say definitely go ahead and do that. I think staying true to yourself is the most important thing, because you don't want to have regrets later on in life of, what, I should have listened to my gut and told myself, well, I should have done this before, and then be ending up somewhere 5-10 years down the line and not being happy with where you are. You've always got to have to face tough decisions day to day. For me, this whole journey of Apprentice, and even when the show's come out, has been really tough for me, as well as there's been highs and lows. Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest, toughest decisions I've had was knowing when I left the show, not knowing how the show would spin it. And in a million years, I never would have thought that I would see myself on the front page of The Sun, being accused for something that I definitely didn't do. And it was such a hard time for me. I think in the week or when that paper came out and all other tabloids picked up on it and reprinted it and purposed it out from their channels, I lost 10 kilograms in the first week. Wow. I still went into work, still saw my patients, but my mind was, I worked so hard to get to the stage I'm at now, and to have this out when I try to do the opposite and represent people of colour, it was a hard thing to do. And I think one of my patients said to me, he had one of these clients who 10 or 20 years ago, don't remember it, when it was also on the front page of the paper, also had, I think, one of these newspapers print like a dartboard with his face in the middle, and he was really crucified for months and months. But what he did was ignored all the noise, put his head down, continue working and being true to himself and doing what he does. Then after that, the same papers that were printing that rubbish about him started praising him. And funny enough, just last week, I was printed again on The Sun and all these other tabloids who completely changed their tune. And for me, that was staying true to yourself, working hard, and just knowing who you are. Because when they printed that, I knew that wasn't me. And instead of, attacking them or attacking the people who kind of put this out. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to cancel out the noise, stay true to myself. And it's really hard. But that person I was speaking about was David Beckham. And now, if you look at him now, he's, you know, the nation's hero, right? So I think it's just, as long as you stay true to yourself, you're going to come through tough decisions, but it will be worth it at the end.
I think that's a real testament to resilience and self-belief as well. And I think from this whole conversation, it's quite evident that the self-belief is so strong that will almost carry you through and help you find the resilience and help you find that grit and determination that you need to kind of persevere, especially when moments get really tough and hard. And I can't imagine kind of the mental toll that all of that must have brought, because I know you mentioned that, you know, tabloids were at your parents' house, for example, and obviously I can already see from this conversation that your parents are like closest ones to you, so that must have been quite something to deal with.
It's one of those things where I know what they're saying isn't true about me, and a lot of people think, you know, I'll just bounce off it. A few of the candidates were like, oh, well, what are you upset? Well, how are you upset? Well, you know, it's rubbish, what's wrong with you? So even though I knew it wasn't true, to have that kind of printed about me and said about me, it still does hurt, right? So
you're only human.
Yeah,
you know,
you're human. And I think some of the candidates were like, well, why would you be upset though? You know that's not you. And then you come to a realization from it. But now I don't pay attention to any of the outside noise. I think, you know, my parents were picking up the newspapers just on Mother's Day when I was with them. Hey, look, this is what the paper said about you. I was like, I didn't even pay attention to it, you know, because 1 second they'd be printing bad, next second they'd be printing good. It's one of those things now where I just stay true to myself. I think once you know who you really are, then it's a lot more easier to shut out the outside noise.
I think that's really important, doing the work to figure out what your core values are, what you want to represent and how you want to show up in the world. I think that's so crucial.
I think it's impossible to please everyone, right? And I think coming out the show, knowing my decision, half the people are going to hate me, half the people are going to love me. You can't control public's perception, and a lot of people have their own narratives, but I'm okay with that. I think I've come to a place now where I'm okay being misunderstood. If people want to have their perceptions about me, I'm not going to fight and, you know, be like, no, but this is me, this is what happened. It's okay. Think what you want to think, you know, it doesn't pay my bills or affects me at the end of the day. Focus on the people that support you and love you and just grow on that.
I love that. There's this thing that I say, you know, I can't change the opinions of other people, but if you want to think that way about me, then that's on you. That's got nothing to do with me. And I think that's such a powerful way to look at things, because as humans, and I don't know if this is something within communities of colour, but there's this essence of people pleasing, and I am a reforming people pleaser, but I always feel like there's this element of, oh God, but what if they think this, or what if they say this about me? But actually, if they do, so what? It's almost like you have to question that. So what if they think that? So what if they don't know me better than I know myself?
It's definitely true. And I think the show, like The Apprentice, a lot of people watch it for entertainment to kind of troll on people. So I think some of me and other candidates was looking through our hate comments, but then clicking on the profile picture. Are you really going to let this person upset your day? Just ignore it, you know, and I think that's important.
I think that's a life skill. Filter out the noise. And know that it's not on you to control everything and every narrative. Jana, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story and being open, honest, and being brave enough to take the steps to back yourself. I think if there's anything that our listeners can take away from this, it's knowing who you are and backing yourself wholeheartedly, because I think that self-belief will bring about resilience, confidence and courage to make sure that you're making the right decision. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Fearless Fireside Chats. If you found this conversation interesting or you have any thoughts and comments, please do drop it down wherever you listen to your podcast. If you haven't already, please do follow and subscribe, because it really does help grow this podcast channel and help bring more fearless, bold conversations just like this one to you. So as always, stay bold, stay brave, and keep being fearless. Thanks for tuning in to Fearless Fireside Chats. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If today's conversation really resonated with you, I am so glad. But don't be a gatekeeper. Share it. This is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. A place where we can bring really tough conversations to light and give a voice to the voiceless and power to the unheard. Remember, you are not alone. So let's keep breaking down barriers, lifting each other up and pushing for a world where everyone feels seen and heard. Until next time, stay bold, stay brave, and keep being fearless.